Behind every symbol of the present, there is a face and a story of the past. Of grit, courage, and sheer will to make a difference.
Who would ever have the nerve to have a car fabricated with a tiger head, like a metal monster, to ride around in it and to scare the living daylights out of children? You could call them stunts, but those days they are not stunts, really. They're absolutely something, brain waves you could call them. It was we had brain waves, one after another.
A car that roared and looked like a tiger, all for promoting a jar of balm. And the man behind the idea, everyone called him the Tiger Balm King.
A brain like mine. He was sharp, he was shrewd, and he was crafty. Crafty not in the sense that he cheated people. Crafty in the sense that he would sell him to that person. As he said, before you could sell anything, you have to sell yourself first. And he sold himself very well.
This marketing maverick founded a business empire that stretched across Southeast Asia, China, and Hong Kong. Tiger Balm, Sin Chiu Jit Po, Singapore Standard, 12 other regional newspapers, the Chung Kiao Bank, and Hopa Villa. This was the man behind these household names.
He realized from the very beginning the advantage of promotion, publicity, promotion, publicity, promotions, publicity. You never mind about sales, sales is secondary. You promote enough, you advertise enough, sales will come, like it is today.
It was this unconventional marketing mind that ensured a legacy that still thrives 80 years on. Available in more than 100 countries today, Tiger Balm has a retail sale value of more than $100 million. It's a Singapore-made product that's truly international.
It took a man of his imagination and of his vision to have put Tiger Balm onto the world map.
Tiger Balm is quite similar to Coca-Cola. Both brands have been around for close to 100 years, and they are still very well known today and still #1 in their own categories. You know, after all these years, Coca-Cola has been #1, and I think Tiger Balm in its
老好伊来斗行，伊一暝起7點來，老好就來鬥行無。伊來到5空做工，你莫看安尼看，莫看5點1角，就是安尼，伊是5點1角講我扛起來的，是安尼。你物件愛較小心用，莫物件拍歹的物件，就是安尼咯。
He was a pioneer in the concept of mass medication. His was more than a business empire in the 20s. He supplied a balm for the poor.
He did make a vast difference in the lives of many of the poorer people. He was the first man to employ mass production in a manufacture of his Tiger Balm and distributed them as widely as possible at a very nominal price so that it would be within the reach of everybody, especially the poor.
頂擺只個鬥攏種規咁講嘛，是攏種買一支款來食嘅，攏種買一支款來買一支藥來食，真無落袋啦，頂擺無一道落袋啦，咱趁錢較少啊，就是講有淡薄人淡薄艱苦，就是買一支來食，買一支來食安尼咯。敢若咱厝內啦，有陣是細囝啦，有陣是大人啊，是啥物啊，啊是頭疼啥物啊，就去買一支來過食，哎呀，腹肚伊發疼啦，就去買支藥來甲梳啦，梳伊就。 你扣了落水惊就是安尼咯。顶摆你爱看老公公真艰苦啦，甲一病甲真食力的老公就安尼个啦，啊无你不免看老公的啦，漂惊人真食力的啊。真正本事有的是真正艰苦日的啦，唔是讲你爱去就会使去的。
There were always Chinese physicians and herbal shops to go to, but these were usually far from their homes, so they'd only go when they were really ill. But Aw Bun Haw had a simple remedy. He and his brother provided a range of medications, medicine that was affordable to even the poorest. It was a business, but one that relieved suffering. At the height of his business, Aw had factories in Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, various parts of China, and in Burma, where Tiger Balm first started. These were achievements driven by a marketing genius. But in his Rangoon days, the young Aw Bun Haw was not seen as promising. He always skipped school and was often involved in fights. This was unsettling for his father, who was a Chinese physician working in Rangoon. He had high hopes for his second son, naming him Bun Haw, which means a tiger of knowledge. Bun Haw was sent back to the family village in Fukien for a dose of Chinese values. It was only after his father's death that he returned to Rangoon. Meanwhile, Bun Pa, his brother, was working in a dispensary. One story said that he met an old pharmacist who gave him a formula of an ointment for aches and pains. The two brothers saw the potential and started to refine the formula. Their kitchen became their laboratory. In a few weeks, the now famous balm that was to bring relief to many was concocted. This same kitchen became the family factory for little jars of Ban Kim Yu, or 10,000 golden oil. It was here that the idea of mass production struck the brothers.
呢係咩嚟嘅？哦，呢隻咧係虎飄萬金油嚟㗎，係本廠咧特製秘方㗎，啊係益街坊嘅，免費㗎，攞翻去試下先啦。
Patients who patronized their shop would often receive a free jar of balm. While his brother concentrated on creating more products, Bun Haw went door to door, day and night, to sell his 10,000 golden oil.
介紹揾店員5年，呢隻咧係虎飄飄萬金油嚟㗎，蚊蟲咬傷啊或者屙嘔肚痛啊，好靈嘅呢隻嘢。
I think he was ahead of his time in many ways. One example is his selling technique. He used consignment, when the product was first introduced.
條價早晨，洗好喎，執馬馬虎虎啊！嗌介紹揾店員5年，啊嘢就哦，嗌奉以上本嚟試下。
你上本嚟試，我買嚟只本1半錢嘅嘢。
係，坐定下，坐定下。
And once the product became popular, then the retailers would have to pay him cash.
Aw also made sure that the packaging was eye-catching. He even named the product after himself and used the imagery of a tiger to promote his product. But what gave the balm a life beyond the brothers' shop was what we today call advertising. Display racks and posters, something we're now familiar with, but in those days it was almost unheard of.
But back then, all these ideas came from himself. He was very, very creative. Again, he didn't have any examples, from other companies or from books that he learned from. A lot of it came from his instinct almost.
Sales in Rangoon were good, but the Tiger was restless. He'd set his eyes on Singapore for his headquarters. Here, the promoter was at his best.
During those times, he has a car with a tiger and roaring like a tiger as well with the sound. He would drive in the car and sit in the car and go around all the places in Singapore and Malaysia as well and do the promoting. He believed in making a lot of noises that attracts people to come around. So these people will dress like a tiger and they would be making, although may not be the right kind of sound of music, but at least it makes a sound so that people attracts people to come around.
By selling himself, Orr hoped to create more interest in his product.
Many of his detractors accused him of being a show-off, being flamboyant. Actually, he was flamboyant only where he thought he could help to sell his medicine.
他的头脑是很不简单的。我听人家讲过，有一次他有一个同乡，跟他同年的，大家很要好的朋友。有一次问他，你为什么你这样发财？胡文虎见你这样发财，我就是这样堕落啊。他的胡文虎就跟他讲，他说你跟我比什么？比方说我们两个人出去打牌呀、玩耍啦，回到家里面你就好像死猪一样的睡觉，啊，我回到家里面还要想东西，假如我房间里面想不通的话，我搬到大厅里面去想，大厅里面又想不通，我搬到天井那边去想，我要一直想到通为止。
Orr was possibly one of the first entrepreneurs to understand what personal image was all about. Dressed in the latest fashions, he always presented the best of himself. It was said that even though he didn't quite need glasses, he had a pair made just so he'd look more distinguished. But with or without glasses, it was obvious that it was his vision and marketing savvy that made Tiger Balm a global name. After the break, the man behind Haw Par Villa. Haw Par Villa. Orr built this as a residence for his brother, Un Pa. It's the world's only theme park based on Chinese mythology. Every year, about 600,000 visitors enter a different world, a very different world. The scenes depicted here were meant to be gory reminders of the punishments that await wrongdoers.
Some people criticizing him for being not very nice to have this kind of scenes, but he feels that this is a way to teach people. If they have seen this kind of things, they might stop them doing anything wrong.
Orr had intended for Haw Par Villa to be a reminder to overseas Chinese of their culture and tradition, especially filial piety.
胡文虎是很孝顺父母的，他身上啊整天都带着一个他父母的那个金牌啊，相片的金牌哦。他家里面就讲客家话的，他的儿女啊去外面讲什么话他不管，他在家里面就要跟他讲客家话。
And he asked me if I knew Chinese. I told him I did not. And he said, you are just like a native, you don't know your own language. I said, no, but I know English. He said, it's no use. You're Chinese, you should know Chinese.
Tiovo Seng, his father and grandfather before him, all worked for Albun Hall. Teo has worked here for 50 years.
来出到伊讲做工人是无讲头家款啊，伊来甲个伊人个真趣味，来甲个就交代往人做地道是安尼啊。有诶查某囝打招话看，伊看着伊讲做了真艰苦，有人伫问讲你爱去伊诶厝来做工过卖。
Orr also had a tiger mansion built in Hong Kong. Both villas were open to the public for free, so that people could enjoy them.
Masuk percuma, nanti daripada nenek, tok, mak, anak, satu keluarga lah datang. Suka datang sini. Kebanyakan satu keluarga. Ada naik lori, ada naik bas. Pasal lagi di tepi laut. Family macam duduk ke, buat barang makan, apa-apa kan. Habis macam tempat lain, cuma pokok-pokok aja kan. Macam sini ada batu-batu, habis ada history.
And of course, they weren't allowed to miss Haw Villa, where they fitted into the strange landscape as though meant for it.
Even after more than 50 years, this villa is still a standing advertisement for his product. Here, you can still see the marketing genius at work. After the break, Albun Hall, the newspaper tycoon, who gave back what he earned. In his lifetime, Albun Hall was also known as a newspaper tycoon. The first, Sin Chiu Jit Po, was started in Singapore, after which he expanded to regional papers, some of which are still in production today.
他自己创办的报纸10多家，而且很多地方有，所以他的应该是算是到现在为止啊，中国华人来讲啊，在办的报纸来讲啊，是他最多的。
The newspapers were excellent for advertising, and his ads were often, well, different.
The tiger. Who is he? Tiger Balm, the king of balms and the balm of kings.
Oh, my dearest, sweetest tiger, I love you so.
She's a different girl, because she always uses Balashin. I don't want this rotten balm. Real tiger balm is what I want.
He would even playfully take liberties with historical fact to suit his advertising.
有一个连载的那个《三国演义》，在那个曹操83万人马下江南的时候，北方的兵啊，就没有不惯坐船了，所以很多那些兵士啊，都头昏脑胀。曹操就跟他讲，不要紧，每个人给他1罐万金油，啊，那么大家一插了万金油，哇，马上就不会分船了。
Though he was one of the richest men of his time, Orr never forgot that he was a Hakka. He was the longest-serving chairman of this Kek association that he helped to set up.
他派人到联邦各地去成立了50多家那个客家工会，好像这些都是他去派人家去策动成立的，当然他要出钱哦。
He was the Hakka son who made it good and would go out of his way to help his fellow man. He wouldn't refuse a request for help, but in return, he demanded absolute honesty.
He disliked people dishonesty. Once he found out, he never deal with him at all in the future. He has quite a lot of incidents because people does take advantage of him.
There's an anecdote about how Weng, a Dhobi, incurred the wrath of the tiger. He was using the land next to Orr's house to dry clothes. He was dishonest and had overcharged the rich Tauke.
我有啲事問你啊，點解啊？你使咗白種人 你又攞咁少呢？啊，你工生意佬一分錢你都可以計。係，當然我有錢，不過咧，你需要我幫忙，我幫你。不過你做生意唔使咁唔老實啊！你呃我呢啲冇啊？咁啊，如果係咁樣啊，大家唔使同我細心。
To teach the man a lesson, Orr bought the land for $5,000 and deprived Adobe of his drying area.
What the tiger did to the Dobie was, in a way, a reflection of a certain ruthlessness that was in the man, a reflection of his living up to his namesake.
That's why when he went in China to Shanghai, when he saw that the sign that said that no Chinese and dog allowed, there is a garden existing in China. So he came back to Singapore and he'd do the same thing in the Haw-Par swimming pool in Paspanyang, and he said no foreigners and dog allowed. So he likes to do that kind of things.
But out of that unpleasant incident came a blessing. Orr built another residence on that plot of land. It was here that Orr started his famous jade collection, reportedly one of the most valuable in the world. And he welcomed the public into his home to enjoy its beauties while he was still living there. Orr had a soft spot for the elderly. All his birthdays were spent visiting old age homes, or he'd invite the elderly to his home. His care and concern was genuine.
Charity to him was not something that is for show. Charity was to him something deep, sincere, and he must be left with a free hand to do charity in any way he pleased. That was the reason why he built a sort of a guarantee into the company articles to give him the absolute authority to spend up to 50% of the net annual profit of his company for charity.
Of the known charities that he supported, it's been recorded that he had single-handedly donated $10 million to Chinese schools, orphanages and old age homes in Singapore, Malaya, China and Burma. Orr Bun Ho, the tiger with the Midas touch, died on 5th September 1954. The philanthropist and marketing genius who was ahead of his time is gone. But the roar of the tiger is still heard in the legacy he left behind.
In this modern generation, I can't think of anybody who would be so bold, so brash, and who possessed that flair, that showmanship that could really carry away with such outstanding success during his time. In other words, there cannot be another Orr Bun Ho.